All right, everyone. Steve M3TR1CS here of Db8 Sports with yo boy.
DJ TRIGGS.
And together we are Db8 Sports breaking down the brackets today. Doing it on the men's side and the women's side of the bracket. So there is some pretty crazy stuff that I'm already seeing on the men's side. I'm not 100% done with my bracket, but it is starting to show some pretty interesting things. And I don't know, how far are you on your bracket, Triggs?
So like my men's bracket, I'm pretty confident in. I'm thinking about changing some stuff,
Yeah.
but the women's bracket, that one's kind of got me up late at night.
Interesting. Yeah. It is pretty interesting. I remember last year when I filled out my women's bracket, I pretty much kind of knew my final four and kind of worked backwards from that. And I think I got only I either got two out of the four or three out of the four of the women's side. I got the national championship game right, and then I mixed up the winner. I had South Carolina beating LSU, and LSU beat South Carolina, so it is what it is.
Nice. Uh,
And
I was in like the high, like 90% or something
okay,
last year.
yeah,
Um, I can't really remember. I wonder if I can
yeah,
find that somewhere.
oh yeah. I do it on CBS. CBS actually has a really good March Madness bracket. ESPN has a pretty good one too. So those are about the two that I fill out, and they're pretty solid. But they give you a good insight of where you stand nationally. So it's
Yeah,
pretty cool on that side.
I use ESPN. I've been doing
Nice.
ESPN for a long time. I was
Yep.
in like the 99 percentile one time um,
Nice.
with the women's bracket. The guys, I
Yeah.
think the highest I've been is like 92 or three.
Oh wow. Wow. Yeah, I was kind of up there last season with the women's side. But the men's side, I've never been too crazy high up on nationally. I do remember I had a year where I won my league. It was about 50 people or so, and it was with the season that Steph Curry went bananas with Davidson,
Yeah,
and that was a pretty solid year. And then had Kansas winning it. I'm not sure, was that Joel Embiid's Kansas?
when Steph Curry was there.
Yeah, when Steph
No,
Curry was at Davidson.
no,
Oh,
that
okay,
was way before Embiid.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, so that was a good Kansas team. That's the one I went with. I think Bill Self only has two national titles, and that is one of them. So it was a good team.
Nice, nice. Yeah,
So
I remember that Curry smashing Wisconsin, and
yes,
like that was the first time where I was just like, dude, this guy's gonna be really good. And his dad was a really good shooter. I mean, I didn't see him being a Hall of Famer, but
mm
like he was a scoring machine at Davidson.
yes. Yes, he was. And they had a great season that year where they lost two really tight games in season against Michigan State and Duke. And I think those games like really set them up well and prepped them for their actual run in the tournament. And I think too they fell into a really nice bracket that wasn't too difficult. It was a Adam Morrison Gonzaga, it was a Georgetown team, and a Wisconsin team. So I didn't really feel they had any real resistance until Kansas, and they almost beat
Right,
Kansas.
right. And I know this might not be the popular opinion now, but like I felt the same way about Curry when he played Wisconsin as John Morant beat Marquette. And I felt
Yes.
the same way. I was like, man, this dude's gonna get in the league and like tear it apart. I think he had a triple double against Marquette.
Oh yeah. He had a triple double. It was insane. It was like, gosh, 30 points or something crazy like that. The game was just not even close.
Yeah,
It was
no,
almost like over with 10 minutes left.
right. And they were a 12 or a 13 seed, something ridiculous like that.
Yes. And I think that's one of those games too that when I look at the brackets of today, I think they really reflect that there's really not too much crazy distance between 11 seeds and, to be honest, below. Like, there's a lot of really good teams when they get in. It's all a mix of how they judge conferences, how do they judge quadrants, stuff like that. But to be honest, these teams to get into the tournament, they got to be good. They got to be real good regardless of how they got in. So I think we've been seeing a lot more upsets recently because of the high level of having such a really good team, regardless of what conference you play in. If you run the table in your conference and you stack up some really good wins and you can play both sides of the ball, have a good pace, I think it really shows up in the bracket, and it will allow you to go pretty far in the tournament.
Right. I agree. Like, it's so weird to see some of these teams that get underseeded and then some teams that get overseeded because of, like, you know, what conference they're in or whatever. And it's like, man, some of these teams are not, like, they're not a high seed, and they're probably going to get smoked by a low seed. Like, I know I have a couple upsets in mind. Obviously, you know, upsets happen every year, but, like, there's some teams where it really hit me where I'm like, wow, am I the only one seeing this?
Yeah, I have definitely felt that way in previous years. The Murray State one is definitely one that I regret. I remember hearing a ton of hype about Ja Morant. I saw him a little bit, and I just wanted to go with Marquette because of the home feel. And I think that might have been Shaka Smart's first season at Marquette. So I was like, oh man, we got Shaka Smart. We're gonna stop him, and it was a reality check.
So, like, not to spoiler alert, but that I'm kind of feeling that pressure about Marquette and Wisconsin this year.
Yes.
There's some things where I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like a hedge that I have with Marquette. I'm not totally sold on them. And like the thing too that we know with Shaka Smart in the past when he was at VCU, he was pretty much the very first coach to incur what a first four playing game is, and he ran the table with VCU to the Final Four. I don't see that necessarily with any 10 seed, but I look at the one that Marquette could potentially play against, and I think that's a problem. I something about Colorado that I've seen. Yeah. I've watched Colorado a few times at night at work, and I've seen this team play. They're a really good team. They're a really good team.
I agree. And Colorado's the one that scares me too.
Yes.
But spoiler alert, Marquette's either losing to Colorado or they're losing to Kentucky.
Yeah, that's about where I have them as well, and I see that same kind of thing happening. I think this to me for Marquette is going to be like the season where we just didn't get to see what Marquette would have truly been at 100% strength. I think if we had them at 100% strength, this might be the team that might win it all. I could see them at least. I mean, yeah, I'll be honest. If they were at 100% strength throughout the entire tournament, I think they would be in the championship for sure. I like just based on how my bracket looks right now and who I have on the right side. I feel like the left side of the bracket is stronger than the right side. That's kind of where I'm coming from, even though I'm not fully done with the left side. Yeah.
So, what regions do you have completed so far?
Yeah, so I have the South, the Midwest, and I'm almost done with the West. I got a little bit of editing down, maybe 2-3 games to finish. I have North Carolina in the Elite Eight in that side. I think they have a pretty good path of travel to get to the Elite Eight, and I feel pretty confident on that. That's kind of the consensus that I'm hearing across the nation is UNC is probably at least getting to the Elite Eight. And I see that. I do want to give a second look up top to Connecticut against possibly whoever they would show up against in the Sweet 16, I think that is something that you want to give a second look. Auburn could be there. There could be someone else that's not Auburn, and then maybe that makes it a little easier for Connecticut to go to the Elite Eight. I know Connecticut's really good, but again, it's a young team. It's a new team from the one that won it all last season. So that's kind of the stuff I'm seeing up there. I like Connecticut quite a bit, but I just know the path of travel they have to go through, and I don't want to just be like the rest of the pack and have Connecticut just coast all the way to the Final Four. I'm not. I've done that in the past and gotten burned.
So my big thing about Connecticut is, I mean, they're 31-3 for a reason.
Yes.
And they've only lost, I think the 3 games they lost, 2 of them were in conference, and then they lost to Kansas.
Okay.
Earlier in the season, I don't really count that game against them. I look more at that conference schedule. They lost to Creighton.
Yep.
But they've beaten a team like Marquette 3 times in a row. They also came back and they got their win back with Creighton, and like they've beaten St. John's and just murdered every team in that conference. I mean,
they're huge.
The Big East pretty easily.
Yeah, and that's a big conference.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm kind of stuck with UConn. I mean, their draw is gonna be. I mean, it's a nightmare. But they might not have to play all those teams.
Right.
Last year, San Diego State and FAU both made it to the
Final Four.
The Final Four. Yeah, I'm losing my train of thought. And so, like, playing against some of those teams on the way there might toughen UConn, and give them that edge that they need. Especially like, I mean, I don't see them losing to an FAU or a Northwestern. Stetson might give them a little bit of a run,
right?
I don't see them losing to them either.
Right.
There could be some upsets on the other side because you don't really know. And I haven't picked this game, but like you don't know what Illinois is gonna show up. Is it gonna be the one that just ran through the Big Ten, or is it gonna be the Illinois from the beginning of the season? You know, losing to Tennessee, Purdue, Michigan State, like
those are good schools, though.
Yeah, they are, and
those are really good.
And that's why I'm like, or like, I mean, Michigan State's not a very good school, but
they are not.
They struggled.
Yes.
They lost to them, and then they struggled.
Right.
And then they barely got past Wisconsin.
Okay.
So like to me, that's not really a 3 seed to be afraid of. But
sure,
teams like BYU and Iowa State and stuff like that, even if they make it Auburn or Yale, both of those teams can be pretty scary too.
Yep. And yeah, there's some stuff I'm talking about. I'm hearing about Iowa State. People are talking about them as possibly the best team in the nation. And I have zero analysis about Iowa State at all. I know they play in the Big 12. People say they probably should have been, at worst, the best number 2 seed, possibly a 1 seed over North Carolina.
So Iowa State, I don't know if you know this about the rankings and how they work, but
yeah,
they're actually the last 2 seed. So they are the 8th ranked team.
That's wrong
in the tournament,
and that's totally wrong.
I definitely. I mean, the KenPom ratings have them at number 5, so
exactly
2 seed for them.
Yep.
And they beat some pretty solid schools. I mean, the number 1 seed Houston, they beat them earlier in the season,
and then they shellacked them 2 days ago.
Right, I was gonna say, and then they beat them again. So it's someone's got your number. I mean, Iowa can be really, really, really good, especially if they end up in that what is it, Elite 8 battle with with UConn, and that's why this whole region is
it's a bruiser.
Like when you have 3 of the Final Four teams from the year before, and then you have Iowa State, like what do you do if you're UConn, you know?
Yeah. There is some pretty interesting stuff. I do think just nature of process of elimination, I do think Connecticut will probably avoid at least 2 of those along their way, so they won't even encounter some of them. I do think for me, and I've seen this team play, I like them. I rooted for them, and it was kind of, I don't know, like I saw them play against Arizona. It was pretty cool. But I've seen some other games lately where it's just been kind of off. I don't know what's quite off with this team, but Florida Atlantic, something's not right, and I'm going Northwestern on that game.
I actually, I mean, if we're giving picks, I have Northwestern over FAU.
Yeah.
There's some games where they look really, really good, and then there's other games where you're like, oh,
what's going on?
But you're right. I mean, they got beat by Memphis at a certain point, and it kind of made you scratch your head a little bit.
Right.
Not only do they score a bunch, but they also let up a lot of points, and they don't really have a good record against top 25 this year.
Okay.
And like it's just one of those teams where they're gonna be a popular pick,
right?
Just because they were in the Final Four last year,
right? But they gave me cause for concern, and I love Florida Atlantic. I love what they're doing. Like, it hurts not to advance a team I love, but I gotta go Northwestern. I think that's where the smart positions are, where people are looking at this, and I gotta go with what people are really thinking about, and where the minds and the stats kind of line up. We just feel that Northwestern's better, and we got to go with that.
Right, and I mean, when you rank these two teams, they're in like high 40s. Both teams are pretty close to each other, and to me, like if I match up FAU's wins, like they've beaten some just okay teams in Arizona, and that's kind of what it is.
Right.
And then Northwestern, when you look at them, like they beat Illinois, they beat Michigan State. You know, they went toe to toe with Wisconsin. They beat Purdue. Like they've got some wins under their belt where it's like, oh, okay, this team is a little hardened. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they do look pretty good. I like what they got there. I just think Connecticut's gonna run into Northwestern and say, okay, cool, this isn't Florida Atlantic, and I think they're gonna move on.
Right. I mean, I'm with you there. Like, how do you feel about the 5-12 with San Diego State and UAB?
I actually just saw San Diego State's coach interviewed this morning, and he said a problem that San Diego State has had, and granted, I don't have this in my metrics when I analyze teams. I only went with about 5 metrics of pace, 3-point shooting, 3-point defense, offensive rating versus defensive rating. But I heard the coach say that San Diego State had trouble against rebounding. And apparently Alabama Birmingham is a pretty good rebounding kind of team. And I mean, when this was going on, they were showing a little bit of the highlights of Alabama Birmingham. And I'm like, oh man, these guys can hoop. This is like Phi Slamma Jamma that they might be up against. So for those reasons, I'm taking the Blazers.
See, no, and it's so funny. Like, I actually think that too. UAB is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the nation. But the worst part is Ken Palm has them rated 106. So there's no way I'm taking them.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, San Diego State is beating like Gonzaga, Utah State, New Mexico. They've beaten some teams in this tournament where you're like, man, those are some heavy hitters. And I know your buddy Grady there brought up Memphis. Well, UAB lost to Memphis by like 30. So
yeah,
I'm good.
I get it. Yeah, like literally that one, I might spend some more time on and go back and double check it and see how my analysis comes out that I've been doing for especially the right side of the bracket. But I just get this weird feeling that I don't think Connecticut is going to run into either Florida Atlantic or San Diego State. That's what my gut is telling me. I'll see what happens moving on, but I definitely have a lot more to look into when it comes to that, and I think I will double check my work on that matchup.
I actually agree with you, but so
I don't know.
let's just move on to this next.
Sure.
But because what you said was they wouldn't run into FAU or San Diego State,
Yeah.
and I have both of those teams out.
Exactly. Exactly. Like it's possible they could run into them, but I think it's very likely that they don't run into any of them. I just think there's the teams those teams are going up against have somewhat good matchups, and I think they're going to play out a little more favorable in a way that it wounds up to help Connecticut in a weird kind of way where people think that Connecticut might be getting dogged on certain matchups, but I think Connecticut might have a little bit of a shocker maybe in the first round, but I think after their Stetson game, I think they'll cruise to the Sweet 16 for sure.
Right. So then I'm looking at Auburn and Yale, right?
Yeah.
So this is gonna sound crazy.
I've
This
heard a
is
few different things on this one.
this is my upset. Um,
That's fair.
so they're really good on defense, right?
Yep.
They're a solid
That's what Bruce
offensive
Pearl does.
team. Yeah, absolutely. But Yale just they got a guy that's 7 foot down there,
Oh,
Danny Wolf,
there's
and
a
this
transfer, right?
I can't remember if he's a transfer, but the dude is he makes me think that this is the Cinderella team that I'm looking at right here.
Okay.
Um, they limit turnovers and they're really good on the glass. So like, I
Sure.
mean, obviously he's 7 foot tall. So like
Yeah, that's big,
to
man.
me that is a disaster for Auburn.
Sure.
They got some big guys, but they're more about being efficient
Okay.
and they've run into some real problems, mainly Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
Those are
But
fast teams.
yeah,
So when it comes to how I break down the metrics of this, ooh, Grady said he is a transfer. So our viewers definitely doing some great work for us. Love it. I heard that earlier today that big guy you're talking about is a transfer. That is interesting. They actually say that the Yale guy is legitimate NBA talent,
yeah,
like
yeah.
legit NBA talent,
That is
and
my
that's
so that's
scary,
my
man.
big thing. When I see NBA talent on a team, that that kind of makes my antennas go up a little bit. And
Okay,
because yeah, you can have these great teams, but we've seen it where like guys like Tyler Hansborough or
yes,
Adam Morrison and like
yep.
these awesome college players, they
They
run
don't have
into
it
some NBA players, and you go, oh, I don't even think this guy's allowed to be in the league. And
right,
like Danny
right.
Wolf, he looks like he could do some damage.
Right. And the other thing too is like you want to see guys who have that little shimmy shake, like the handles, like you see with Kyrie Irving. And I I, I don't want to stray away too much, but when I look at the women's game, I mean, I know people love Caitlin Clark and she can shoot, but man, watch how that Juju Watkins and that Paige Brewster play. I'm screwing up her last name, but they have that like NBA kind of vibe about them. That's what I want to see. When you see something like that, that is totally different. Doesn't matter how good you are. Like if you are a player that has that all around game and you got the surrounding pieces around you, like a Steph Curry did at Davidson, it's going to take you far.
Right. Yeah. Um and that's another thing that I'm kind of working on with the BYU game too.
Sure.
Like that's another one where I'm like, man, BYU launches threes like no other.
Okay.
If they hit threes, they can literally beat anybody. And that
Okay.
reminds me of that NBA style game. But
Sure.
then it's like when they don't hit, then they score like 63 in a game. And
Okay.
they lose, you know, to Iowa State by 5. But if they hit some threes, they're in a game, and then they beat Iowa State by 15. So it's like you get this kind of just movement.
Right. And I know,
ahead.
when it comes to this game, I know Duquesne's coach is retiring. Right now I have Duquesne penciled in just out of heart because I know these guys are playing for like their coach. It's his last game. I think they want to send him out with a win. I've heard a lot of people. I've heard a fair amount of people picking Duquesne in this game, so I like that. I really don't recognize BYU at all in March Madness, so for that reason, I'm picking Duquesne.
Wow, hurtful.
It's all I got right now. I mean, I got insight on these games. I don't have insight on all the games, but that's what I got for now.
See, and my big thing is like they barely squeaked in by winning the Atlantic 10 tournament.
Yeah, I'm seeing 11 losses on Duquesne. That's not so hot.
Yeah, and I mean BYU's got 10 losses, so it's not that much. But like I said, BYU's beaten Iowa State by 15. Like
that happened?
Yeah, definitely happened. Beginning of the season, and then they lost to him later on. But and they lost to him by 5 because they just weren't hitting shots. But
but that's still a good loss.
Yeah, if they hit threes, they're beating anybody.
All right, I'm gonna pencil Duquesne and circle BYU, and know that I have to circle back to this game and relook it.
Yeah. I mean, spoiler alert. I got BYU going dancing. They're going Sweet 16 at least.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
For a third time is Iowa State.
Oh my goodness, that is so. Is BYU in the Big 12?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a Big 12 team now. Yeah. Them, Central Florida, Houston, and Cincinnati, I believe, are now Big 12 teams.
And TCU.
TCU's always been a Big 12 team.
Oh, maybe I'm just throwing lopsided thoughts out there.
That's okay. That's okay. That's cool. Yeah, I know the Big 12, they want to go up to 12, so they had to add like 4 teams. So they added like an independent, 2 teams, 2 or 3 teams from the American Conference. Yeah. Yep. And there they go.
But are you in agreement with me on oh wait, man, I know we're taking a long time on this region, but man,
that's okay.
Oh, the Illinois Morehead State game.
I don't know what to do with that game, man. I know I'm penciling Illinois, but I've heard nothing on Morehead State, which concerns me.
Morehead State, like, they're really good. Like,
interesting.
They have a dude putting up 20 a game. So, like, I can't remember his name. It's like Riley or something like that.
Sure.
I feel bad because I can't remember his name. But he's putting up 20 a game. And Illinois' got a guy putting up 20 a game. So, like,
yes,
to me, it's one of those situations where you're like, if Morehead State goes off and just puts up a lot of points,
right,
they got a shot. I mean,
yeah, I can tell you though, I know like Illinois' coach is an excellent coach, one of the best out there in the game. He actually has, since he got to Illinois, I believe he has actually one more win overall than Matt Painter at Purdue.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and he came from Oklahoma State and Stephen F. Austin. Before that, Stephen F. Austin is where he really got his notoriety and did some really good runs in the tournament with that team. So he's basically just gone program to program and ramped him up to being incredibly successful wherever he goes. He's almost like the Jim Harbaugh of basketball.
So I'm picking Illinois, but this is the main reason. All right, so Morehead State has lost to Alabama by 30. They lost to Purdue by 30. They lost to Penn State by 20 plus, and Indiana beat them by 1. So
Sure.
To me, that basically tells me that if you play the big dogs, you kind of just get run through.
Yeah, that definitely reflects that maybe playing the bigger schools, they definitely have some trouble. And
Right.
it seemed like too that you also pointed out it to me from when I break down like the DNA of these teams, it almost looks like two types of trouble. They have trouble against the slow, meticulous teams and that are probably bigger inside like a Purdue. And then they also struggle against the fast, quick tempo, high scoring teams as well. That to me is like a big no-no. And I can tell you in the West region where we're coming up on the bottom, there is a school I have that I've just did before the show that to me they have signaled that they have lost that they show signs of being vulnerable against three different types of teams like what we just went through.
Right.
So I don't like seeing that.
That makes sense. How do you
Yep.
feel about Drake and Washington State?
This one I'm going with a little bit of what people are talking about. Plus, I have a little insight. I have watched this team play a few times late at night, and Wazoo to me is they don't look right. So for that, I saw them lose to Colorado. For that reason, I'm going with Drake, and I've heard a lot of people pick Drake as well.
Yeah, I really like Drake. Washington State has a good story. One of their young guys, one of their top players, Miles Rice,
Okay,
actually beat cancer.
nice.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I wanted to
Yeah,
pick them for the feel good story.
yeah,
But just like you said, I mean, they barely put up 50 against Colorado.
yeah.
And like when I look at Drake, like they're putting up 60, they're putting up 70, 80 points a night. Like I'm just not sure Washington State can keep up.
Yeah, and Drake was either in the tournament last year or the year before. So they got some experience. They're ready to go. I do love seeing that, especially from the mid majors, about middle of the country. Those teams tend to have a little bit of juice once they kind of get their feet wet in the tournament.
Right. And then I'm assuming we're just both running through with Iowa State, right?
Yeah, we're both running Iowa State on that one. Not even giving that one a look. Knock on wood there. We'll see what happens, but that is where I will begin my Iowa State analytics with them against Drake, and then I'll see where it takes me after that.
Nice. Which region do you want to hop to next?
Let's go a little bit. I mean, I'm not totally done with the region, but let's pop down to the West.
Okay, that's where I got next. North Carolina just looks, I mean,
They're,
magical.
very balanced, very balanced. The thing that I like about I forgot his name, the coach Hubbard, his team. From my analytics that I'm looking at right now, like North Carolina is fast. Like it is a fast, high-scoring team, very efficient on defense. Like all around, really good team. I mean, the worst part of them is shooting threes, and they're still like top third in the nation at shooting threes. So like other than that, they're like in the top eighth or like 88 85 percentile across every other legitimate like stat that I looked at, whether it's pace, offensive rate, defensive rate, 3-point shooting, defensive 3 points. They're solid, man. They are so balanced and so good. I like it. They're going to have a really nice path to get to the Final Four. I really think that's the case.
Yeah, and they have RJ Davis, the unanimous ACC Player of the Year.
Nice.
Dude puts up 20 plus a game and just like he looks like an NBA player.
Yeah, that's the thing is North Carolina, especially with the Jordan brand, they can definitely get that NBA caliber talent. And now with NIL really coming back to the fold with college programs, I think North Carolina is really going to start positioning themselves very well in the coming years to the point that they'll even be better than Duke. I know that's a rivalry, but they're going to just they have more recent success they're just an overall just better program, but even just the style they play is so balanced, so up tempo. It's cool. Like it is a really awesome style of play, and I'm pretty excited to watch North Carolina whenever those games are on.
Nice. Going to what is that? St. Mary's in Alabama.
Oh wait, we skipped one.
We did.
Yeah, we skipped Mississippi State and Michigan State.
Oh, we did?
Yep.
No, Michigan State's playing North Carolina.
I have Mississippi State playing against North Carolina.
You know what? I'm sorry. I just skipped that whole region because I
you did.
North Carolina.
Yeah, you did. Yep.
Yeah, I definitely have Michigan State in that one.
I am taking Mississippi State.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, a little spice on that one. I got zero analytics into it. I'm just kind of going off what the consensus talking heads that I've seen on CBS breakdown and a little bit of ESPN. And I'm not hearing too many good things about Michigan State. I know they've been in the tournament many, many times, but I am hearing good things about Mississippi State. So that's what I'm going with there.
Understandable. Like with me, like the good, solid defense, solid offense, and I think they stopped the other team from scoring threes, and that's the only reason I picked Michigan State. This one's kind of a toss up to me.
Yes,
but at the same time, like if either team plays a good team, they just kind of get mopped. So
yeah, I think North Carolina runs through either of them.
Yeah, basically that's kind of how I feel.
Yes. Yep.
So now St. Mary's.
Yes.
And Grand Canyon. So with me, Grand Canyon's an awesome team. Like they have a lot going for them, but St. Mary's is like so slow paced, and they stop the other team from shooting threes, so you can't actually like run away with them.
Yeah, they're basically Virginia.
And like to me, that's a recipe for smacking somebody in the face. And on top of that, they've got wins over Gonzaga. Like,
yeah, that's real.
Like when you score 74 points a game and your opponents only score 58, that's crazy.
Yeah. So just looking quick here at my analytics because I am looking at how New Mexico has had losses, and it's very interesting. Every single team that New Mexico has lost against has basically been a St. Mary's archetype. I mean, I've gone through all eight of New Mexico's losses are against teams that have slow pace of play. They all have slow pace of play. They can somewhat half of them score really well, half of them do not. But St. Mary's is insane. They've literally have the third best defensive rate in the nation, and they basically have the slowest rate of play in the nation.
Yeah, that's recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it is.
That team is not easy.
Yeah, and against for 3-point shooting, their defense is basically at the very end of the top, like if you want to say quadrants, basically the first quadrant of teams. They rank about 80th for against the three. So that could definitely give them some problems. But again, when I look at this, I want to flip it. And when I do more analytics tonight, I want to see how Grand Canyon has lost. What teams, what style of play do they lose against? So that's what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned about that with St. Mary's. St. Mary's is a very excellent program. And it is interesting. Grand Canyon has been in the tournament a few times in recent seasons. But you are right. That is their bread and butter is shooting threes.
Yeah. So I actually I'm gonna be transparent. I just made a switch on my next pick. Because after I started comparing and going through saying Alabama and St. Mary's,
Yep.
And I was looking at that. I don't think Alabama's getting out of the first round.
It is
Charleston's
very, yeah, it's possible. I know Alabama's MO. That's probably one of the programs that I've followed ever since Nate Oates got there. I mean, I like the guy. I've loved anything with him. Bob Hurley, Dan Hurley, all those guys coached together at Rhode Island, and then they kind of went their separate ways, and they all had success wherever they've gone. So I love what's going on here. This guy's from Watertown as well in Wisconsin, so really cool guy with Nate Oates. Their MO is fast-paced, shoot threes, play defense. That's what they do. If they can do that, they can win against almost anybody. However, you got to be heads up on Alabama because they just lost 2 guys to the NBA last season.
So the big thing I just read, and it kind of like turned my head. They struggle to force turnovers, and they've lost 4 of their last 6 games. And coming into the tourney, not on a good run. I mean, they lost. I'm just looking at Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, Arizona, Creighton, Purdue. They've lost to literally everybody that's in the tournament.
Those are tough schools, though. Those are like world beaters.
I mean, they are, but when you're getting beat by 13, 20, 18, 22, like I have no confidence in them at all.
Yeah, that is not good. College of Charleston, only 7 losses, so that's pretty good. Just got to see what that is. I really have no insight on that, to be honest. I mean, I've penciled Grand Canyon twice, but that's all I got. I really don't know much about really any of those 4 teams, to be honest, outside of my general knowledge.
Charleston's really big on shooting the 3. I
mean, that's like Grand Canyon.
Deep. They're a super deep team. Like, I mean, they play like the whole bench.
Wow.
I mean, they go full in, and you're just kind of like, oh, there's not one star on this team. Let's see if I can find.
Interesting.
I think their leading score is like 12 points a game.
Holy smokes! Yeah. Wow, they play everyone.
Yep. So Clemson and New Mexico. What do you got there?
Yeah, so right here, this is the analysis I've gone through, and I've seen 3 different ways to beat Clemson. I don't like that. For that reason alone, I'm picking New Mexico.
Right. Clemson started 11-1, and they ended up 21-11. So like they basically 500 the rest of the way. Yeah, I don't like that.
And the great thing, the great thing about New Mexico is they are the MO of a Rick Pitino team. They play deep, they play the bench, they play fast, they shoot, they play really good defense. That's what his father does. And it took his son a little time in Minnesota to fail and then find another school and really fine tune things and get better. And he did that with New Mexico. And New Mexico looks really solid. It is ironic. We talked to St. Mary's, and there is a potential they could run into St. Mary's. I will tell you, if they do, whatever school kind of plays like a St. Mary's, that will be New Mexico's downfall. I do like what's going on with New Mexico, but they have a loss against St. Mary's. Every team they've lost against is slow. Slow, has big inside presence, and that's what they do. If they go up against maybe like a Purdue, even though it's not even in their region, that's the kind of style of play that New Mexico is bad against.
So fun part about New Mexico is they've beaten San Diego State, who we kind of liked. They've beaten them twice. And I'll give you another one. I have them beating Baylor in the next round.
Yeah, I do too, actually. And I'll tell you this too, like more insight on New Mexico. And they would more than likely show up against Arizona after that. There's not a single loss by New Mexico against a team that has fast pace of play. The fastest team they've played against is that they have lost against is Utah State. Anyone that is faster than Utah State, they've never lost against.
And they only lost by 2 points. So
there you go.
Got blown out.
Yeah, like him and his father, they have this very I mean, it's full court press. That's what they do. They can play full court press. They're incredibly conditioned. They are fast players, and that's what Rick Pitino's teams do. So it's very weird because after this they play against Arizona, which is like nothing they've ever lost to, or I'm not sure if they've seen before when it comes to the victories that New Mexico has. But yeah, like they should show up really well against Baylor and Clemson.
Nice. Yeah. So I'm assuming we both have Arizona going through whoever
Correct.
Play Long Beach State and either Dayton or Nevada.
Yeah, I got.
State
yeah,
is one of those teams that could be really sneaky to get to that Elite Eight.
Who? New Mexico?
Yeah, New Mexico. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of why when it comes to New Mexico and Arizona, like I definitely got to take a little more deeper dive into this. But looking at Nevada and Arizona, I mean, I think Arizona is going to have a real easy path to playing that Sweet 16 game against New Mexico. I know Long Beach State is just like Duquesne, where the coach actually resigned and then they went on and won their conference tournament, and now they're in the tournament, so he keeps coaching kind of thing. But it is what it is. I know Dayton's actually not as good as once they were with my boy Obi Toppin. So it is what it is. And it's interesting we said Toppin because I heard of a Toppin that plays for New Mexico. Is he like a third brother or something? Or totally unrelated?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, there is a we got to find this out, but there is definitely a Toppin on New Mexico after we know Obi's younger brother played at Kentucky and Obi was from Dayton. So kind of some weird stuff going on in this little sub-region.
Right. So do you got Arizona over Nevada then?
I do. Okay. Yeah, I've watched Arizona a couple times this season against Florida Atlantic, and I saw Arizona I think play a conference game middle of the season in like December or something. And they look much, I mean, I got to put the hate out there, but I'll tell you this, they already look better than every single Sean Miller team. I don't like Sean Miller at all. And I know he had his issues as well as a person. And I'm glad Xavier's not in the tournament. But Sean Miller is I just thought he was a garbage head coach that was hyped up way too much.
Well, on another note, I watched them put a dub on Wisconsin earlier in the season.
Oh,
we kind of go, oh,
yeah.
It's
different. Something about this Arizona team is definitely different. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's no debate.
They got a shot. That's true. They got a shot at getting to the Final Four. Like,
yeah, they do.
They're not one of those teams to just chalk up a couple wins and hope. But
no, again, that's a real team.
I mean, New Mexico versus Arizona could be really fun.
Yeah, it could be really fun. Yeah, that's why I really want to dig deep into this, and I want to get that game right.
Understandable. Where are you going next? What region you want to?
Yeah, so that's about as far as I got in my West region. Definitely got some more work. We know North Carolina is going to be waiting for either of those two teams. But going to the brackets that I have filled out, let's go up top to the South. And just starting off the bat, I would figure we both have Houston winning against Longwood. And Longwood, I know from last season, is a team that can really shoot up the threes. So that's definitely a good thing for them. I mean, the thing is, Houston is the 12th best in the nation against threes. So like you said earlier, that's going to negate that thing that they're good at. And Houston's really good at that. We know Houston's got just an insane kind of defense like Virginia and St. Mary's and those kind of schools. So for that, I have Houston. The next game took me a little while to dig deep on this one, but I'm going Nebraska.
Same, because I don't like Buzz Williams.
I do like Buzz Williams. I do like Buzz Williams. I like I do like Virginia Tech. I've caught some of those, or I mean Texas A&M. He used to be at Virginia Tech, but it is kind of ironic when I look at games that Texas A&M has lost against. They've lost against a few different styles of play for sure, but they have definitely lost against the slow, meticulous teams that can score, like your Virginias, Houstons, South Carolina. Like those are to me very indicative of what Nebraska is going to do. So for that reason, that's why I like Nebraska. I know Texas A&M. I'm looking at their kind of thing, and I see it there too. But I don't know. I just don't feel it like I do with the other teams. So I think Nebraska is going to get this.
Same. So I'm gonna skip to the next game.
Yep.
Because it almost hurt.
It'll hurt.
It's gonna crush me.
It's gonna hurt.
Like, I'm picking Wisconsin only because I have to.
Oh, I'm picking James. Like I initially penciled Wisconsin to the Elite Eight, and then I went back. I was like, wait a minute, let's actually do some work on this and be a real analyst on this. And I'm going James Madison.
So
it's
the only leeway I can give Wisconsin. The Wisconsin that showed up in the Big Ten tournament and the Wisconsin for like the first month or two of the season is a top 10 team in the nation. Whatever team showed up between like January, the end of January to like March was horrific. Like, I mean, like they beat Marquette at one point, they beat Michigan State, they beat Purdue, but then they also lost to like Illinois pretty badly and Purdue pretty badly, and like
so this is
know what team is going to show up.
Yeah, I looked at some of the things. I looked at it kind of quickly as to what James Madison loses against, and I compared that with what Wisconsin is. They do not lose to a team like Wisconsin. They just don't. They've lost twice to App State and once to Southern Miss. Those are kind of average pace of play teams. And those are teams that are kind of middle of the road everywhere else. James Madison, like they're really good too. They have they got some real ballers on this team. They're X3. That is already something that you got to open your eye to and be like, whoa, like what's going on here? James Madison was nationally ranked at various points through this season as well. They are the 53rd fastest team in the nation. Their offensive rate is 20th. Their defensive rate is 11th. They are the 33rd best three-point shooting team in the nation. They are the second best at defending the three. That's no debate.
Well, their KenPom rating is 59, so take that.
That's actually really good. If you're 59 out of the 64, well, shucks, that's pretty cool.
Wisconsin 17.
Okay, well, we'll see. But
I don't want to pick this game. I'm telling you.
So Wisconsin's ratings are 321st fastest team in the nation.
Oh yeah, they're slow.
They're slow. Offensive ranking is actually quite good at 33. Defensive ranking is 179. Ugh. 3-point offensive shooting is about middle of the road, and Wisconsin does not defend the three at all.
No, but they also don't really shoot the three very well. So like,
oh no, but it's average. It's average. Yeah. They do their damage inside.
So whoever wins this game to me is going to the Sweet 16.
Oh, I disagree. I disagree on that. I think it's possible, but I do like how Duke matches up against James Madison. The James Madison does have 3 losses. They could definitely lose to the style of play that Duke plays. And more than likely, 2 of those losses of James Madison's are against App State, and Duke is more similar to App State than Southern Miss, in all honesty. So I think that is bad news bears for James Madison. That is where I think the script flips, and what James Madison was good against is now their downfall against Duke.
So I have Duke losing to Vermont.
I love Vermont. I love Vermont. It is always my favorite March Madness college basketball school. I love the Catamounts. I love that they basically only have like a handful of losses every season. I love Vermont. They are one of the coolest teams in college basketball, for sure.
So Vermont has won 19 of their last 20.
They always do it. They always win a million games.
They're a top 10 team defensively. And guess what? If Duke goes cold, it's over. Like, and they have a lot of games where like you're kind of like, oh, they're gonna win this, and then they lost to Wake Forest.
Wake Forest actually is kind of good. Yeah, they're like kind of they're about sort of average, sort of good. Yeah. Like average pace of play, average defense, but kind of good. They are good at shooting, though. They are definitely a 3-point shooting team in Wake Forest. So they're like a middle of the road, but really good 3-point shooting team.
And that's what worries me is like I think Duke got.
That sounds like Vermont.
Seeding. Yeah, they got a bad seeding getting Vermont in the first round.
All right, I gotta circle this game now and go back and redo it.
They're 24-8. I mean, is that a 4 seed? I don't know.
No. A 24-8 should not be a 4 seed in my opinion. Well, then again, Alabama lost 11 games.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that one.
Yeah, some of the seeding's kind of weird. Kansas, 10 games. And who's the other 4? Auburn at 7 makes sense. That's fair. Like everyone loses 7 games.
Yeah. But yeah, so I actually have NC State over Texas Tech as well.
Yeah, I do too. The NC State's pretty good, actually.
State, by the way, beat Duke recently. Just putting that out there.
Yep. And that's fair.
And then they beat North Carolina. So,
wow.
I think, yeah, back-to-back days too.
Cha-ching.
To me, they're ready to go. Like
they are.
They're just like Wisconsin, where they started off really hot, then they kind of simmered down a little bit, but then they came back in the ACC tournament and just turned it on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is definitely going on with the Wolfpack. I know when they were winning against Duke in that tourney, they had multiple fan bases at that game rooting against Duke. And that's cool. That is pretty cool stuff right there. But I do think that it changes against Kentucky. I think Kentucky is a great team. And I know people dislike Kentucky as well. But, Kentucky, man, they check off a lot of boxes as well. Let me see if I can find them. They're pretty much good at everything but defense.
Yeah, I mean, I got Kentucky going to the Elite Eight, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I got them. Honestly, I have them Final Four.
Oh.
Yes, I have them going against Houston, and then I think they spread Houston thin. And Houston, their losses, the few losses that Houston has are against teams like a Kentucky. So that's why I am going. Okay.
You're changing my mind right now. Kentucky's going to the national championship.
Yeah. So Houston has multiple, like they've lost against some pretty fast-paced teams. Kentucky is even faster than 2 Iowa State losses. TCU is faster than Iowa State. Kansas is between Iowa State and TCU. But ironically, Kansas is actually the worst of, if I'm just looking at these numbers in general. Iowa State's the best, they're right up there. Them and TCU are pretty good. Kansas is nowhere near either of those teams, and Kentucky is better than all of them.
You don't have to convince me. I'm flipping Kentucky out, or putting them in and putting Houston out. Now, if Houston wins, I'm going to be very upset with you.
Oh, that's fair. No, that's fair, man. I've had weird things happen in brackets, but I'm hearing a good amount of people take Kentucky, but just kind of like doing the math and kind of seeing how the bracket shakes out and where I think they could match up and who they match up against. I think playing against kind of like a defensive game against Colorado, a team that's going to play kind of tough and kind of almost like the bad boys of Detroit. I think that's kind of going to help them out and just get them ready for Houston. And then I think they can just shoot the lights out of Houston.
Whoa, pause, time out. Did you just sneak that in without anyone noticing?
Hey, I've seen Colorado play. It's a little, it's pretty good, but it is a little suspect.
So you're saying Colorado beats Marquette?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
yep.
We gotta just say it, folks.
Yes, it is. That I think is the team, the 10 seed on a heater. There is always a 10 seed on a heater in this tournament. That 10 seed to me is Colorado.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't do it.
Okay, that's fair.
I want to, but I can't.
They got some good guards, but they got some good inside presence as well. I've seen this team play multiple times recently, so that's why I'm taking Colorado.
Hey, that's understandable. I was like, we talked about it beforehand. Like, I am so close to that. I hope Boise beats Colorado, so then I don't have to see that.
Yeah, I know nothing about Boise State. I'll tell you that. That's no debate.
But yeah, then I got Kentucky beating Marquette and moving on.
Yep. I think they're just too quick, too good shooting. I think this, even though I don't really know any of these players on Kentucky, I think this might be, ironically, one of Calipari's best teams.
Yeah, that's no debate.
That's no debate. There you go.
Yeah, there's no real like one and done guys that you're just blowing up. They're just an actual team for once.
Yeah, they are. They are just an actual well-coached team. And I think that's where Calipari, especially losing last season to St. Peter's, where he's starting to reflect on this. And he's had other losses in seasons before that where it just doesn't look right. And he should be better. His team should be going further than how they actually go. I know one of the recent ones, obviously, was losing to Wisconsin. But like pretty much around that time to now, things have to change. And I think he is getting better. I think he is changing things. NIL is different as well. Transfer portal. All of these things are new. And I think he's figuring it out and adapting. And I think this is the year where we're going to start to see that come into play.
Right. Yeah. What's his name? I think it's Antonio Reeves.
Sure.
That dude's a baller. Like,
okay.
I won't disrespect that guy. I think he puts up about 20 a game. Does it efficiently, has a nice shot to him. That's one of those guys where you need a star like that to lead you a couple games, and then once that team kicks in, and never know what'll happen.
The only team I have Kentucky losing to is a team that is like Kentucky but actually plays defense, and we will cover that team in the region below them.
Oh, all right. Well, let's go.
Little spoiler.
Next region. What do you got?
Yep. All right. So straight off the bat, we definitely got Purdue against Montana State or Grambling.
Wait.
Uh-oh.
Purdue lost last year.
Wait, did they lose to Farley Dickerson?
I thought so, right? Wasn't that?
Oh yeah, you are right. That was last season. That is a little weird, but just like Virginia losing to Maryland, Baltimore County, I think Purdue is going to be like, hey, we got to get that bad juju out. We got to burn some sage, and we're going to win the first round at least. We at least get out of the first round. That's no debate.
I can agree with you. Spoiler.
Okay.
That they're going to get out of the first round.
That's fair. And we will have some interesting stuff after that. You will, and I might be around later, but this will be interesting.
So, I got Utah State over TCU. I feel like Utah State actually got kind of robbed.
Okay. I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
We talked about Boise with Colorado.
Yep.
They beat Boise by 20.
Okay.
San Diego State got smacked. New Mexico got smacked. Like this team is literally like 2-0 against top 25s. They only lost a handful of times. Like I don't understand how they're the same seed as TCU.
Yeah, so I might need to look a little more into this, but I am actually going with TCU. I know TCU is one of those faster, balanced teams that plays a really good style of ball. Their coach used to be a coach of Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh was really good. I also think he used to be the coach of the Florida Gators, if I'm correct. I think I'm right on that. But anyways, that's kind of what we're seeing here with TCU. They are kind of a faster paced team. And Utah State had a loss somewhat similar against New Mexico. New Mexico is kind of a team like TCU. TCU is just a little bit better at shooting the three and not as good at defending the three. But other than that, their pace of play and able to get back on defense is, very similar. So that kind of sticks out to me. And for that reason, I am taking TCU.
Okay. Well, I'm going to defend that New Mexico. They also beat New Mexico. So take that.
And that's fair.
So TCU has one good win on their schedule. And that's they beat Houston by 1 point. And then Houston came back and beat them by 15 because they only scored 45.
Okay.
I cannot safely take a team that only scored 45 in a game.
Yeah, that's pretty suspect right there. I think I might have to. That was the very first.
One, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm circling that one. That was the very first game when I started throwing numbers at my little bracket. So yeah, we will double back on that one for sure.
So then we got McNeese and Gonzaga. This is another one where I am like, man, Gonzaga got a bad draw. Like,
yeah, they did.
And I know I said that about another 5 seed, I think Wisconsin. McNeese is so good on defense. Like,
yeah.
And
offense.
Yeah, they're definitely good on offense, but like their defense is incredibly insane. Like they're outscoring teams by 19.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I actually don't even on my bracket even have them labeled as McNeese. I have them labeled as Will Wade. This is Will Wade. This is his team. This is him getting back at the NCAA for kicking him out. This guy not only is he going to get wins against schools, he has a win against the FBI. Like, this is a guy that I like. I heard an analyst say that recently the guy's people will be coming up to him dressed as like FBI agents with like the suit, the tie, the glasses, and he just cracks up and shakes their hand. Like, he loves these fans, these guys that criticize him and everything. So I have not even McNeese. I have Will Wade advancing past Gonzaga. And actually, Gonzaga's coach called out Will Wade for being one of those kind of guys. So this is personal for Will Wade.
When you're 13 or 30-3, like, you're doing something right. I understand.
James Madison.
Yeah. Oh boy. I don't want to pick that game. That hurts.
I know, and it hurt me to erase Bucky 3 times, but I had to.
Wait, who did your buddy here said that Houston locked someone down? Who was Houston locking down?
Oh, definitely not Iowa State. They failed twice at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Houston. I mean, sure, I love Houston. I love Phi Slamma Jamma, but man, Houston, they're going to run into something at some point, I tell you.
I mean, you got me to flip it, so I'm definitely with you now.
Yeah.
So the next game is another one that I'm like, Kansas is seated too high.
Yeah, like, and they're banged up. They're just not they're not a normal Kansas team, that's for sure. Not a dominant Kansas team.
Right. They come in here losing to BYU, Baylor, and getting like absolutely smoked by Houston.
Yeah, and
I'll doubled them up.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, Samford's so good. I'd almost consider them up against the Will Wade basketball team. That's how good Samford is. Like they can shoot you out of the gym.
Yeah, they're. I know you were talking about tempo. Their tempo is like, let's go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's
They
fly.
are real fast. They are the ninth fastest team in the nation. They have the 24th best offensive rate. They
Yeah.
are eighth best in the nation at 3-point shooting. They're scary, man. They are real scary. Their defense is like middle of the road. Yeah, their defense is straight up middle of the road. But other than that, they will race you. So I know when it comes to DNA, that's kind of actually a bad thing for Will Wade's team. So I might actually double back on that. But then again, that's not how it's gone for McNeese. But we'll see.
Samford has never won an NCAA game. I'm saying they're going to do it against Kansas.
Oh yeah, that happens. That happens in this one against Kansas. They could do it against Will Wade, but I am picking Will Wade to win against Samford.
I am too. And whoever makes it, they're probably not going to make it much further than that. But
Oh really?
oh no!
Oh,
Oh no! What are you doing?
oh,
Oh
I'm taking
no!
Will Wade to take down Purdue. Yes, that is where Purdue goes down.
Well,
Is against
spoiler
the
alert.
yeah.
We got a whole lot of spoilers
Spoiler
here.
alert. More like boiler alert. Get the engines cranked and start firing them up because Will Wade, he is going to slow down Purdue, and then he can run them out of the gym with scoring, and he can defend against that size that Purdue has. I think that's exactly what it's going to take down Purdue.
Um,
Purdue's
I'm
going down at some point. We know Purdue's going down. When they had the big arm guy, and then they had that German, what was it, Wagner, or no, he was Michigan, but they had that other German guy, and that like honestly, that team was better than this team. This is by far the worst Purdue team in the last 3 to 4 years. When they had the German guys, they were better, and they should have gone further. That's no debate.
I don't know if you can say that, but I have. I mean, at least we both agree that Purdue's not making it to the
No,
Elite Eight.
no, they are not going far at all. This is typical Purdue. Look amazing in the regular season. You're the Dallas Cowboys of college hoops, and then just fall flat in the tournament.
I mean, they got beat by Wisconsin.
And yeah, and Wisconsin played them tough, real tight. And that's what I think. I think Will Wade's team is going to bring that toughness, but that other element of being able to score that Purdue does not want to play against.
I have Utah State beating Purdue.
Yeah, there you go. And Utah State's solid. I'm definitely giving that game another look, but totally, man, like Utah State could do it.
They're really good at shooting the two. Like,
Nice.
But anywho, let's go to who do you got? South Carolina or Oregon?
I got Oregon. I know Oregon's head coach has never lost an opening game in the tournament. So that has Dana Altman, awesome. And honestly, even though they're an 11 seed, Oregon, just being honest, pretty much over the last decade, Oregon for college hoops has basically always been honestly like a top 5 seed in any bracket. Oregon is just a really good program. I know they're ranked 11th here. They had kind of a not so Oregon-ish kind of season. I saw them play in the Pac-12 tournament. They look good. They look solid. They got some ballers. I like Oregon. They really got some solid play. So South Carolina is nice, but I trust Oregon. This is a solid program. They have legit program experience. South Carolina's a good team, but they've changed head coaches recently. I think they're just starting to get that program really good again.
Yeah, Oregon did run off wins against Colorado, who we like.
Yep.
Arizona, and they ended up winning the Pac-12 tournament. So, like,
yep.
Man, I think
That's
you just
solid.
convinced me again to pick Oregon. I had South Carolina. So,
Yeah.
huh.
Yep. Yeah, I feel good about that, but I don't feel good with them beyond that first game.
Yeah, and now you're kind of making me rethink myself. So Akron is really, really solid. Like they're not as bad as they look on paper, but they
Mm-hmm.
also haven't beaten anyone that matters, and that's the only reason I can't pick them against Creighton. Creighton's actually really, really good.
Yeah, they are. They're really good. They are one of the best teams in the Big East, and literally that is one of the best conferences in college hoops. So like we see in college football, right? We all know the Big 10, Big 12, and SEC, and that's now college football. The Pac-12 dissolved. When it comes to college hoops, it's a little different. It's the Big East, it's the Big 12, and then it is really the SEC. The SEC is a really good basketball conference. If you really take a step back and think about it, it's not just a football conference. It's actually an excellent basketball conference. The ACC just has like two teams, basically, kind of like how the SEC used to be dominant in football. But looking at basketball now, it's the SEC, Big 12, and then it's the Catholic Conference plus Connecticut in the Big East.
Right. Yeah. So Mr. Grady there, I had Akron, and like maybe I should just leave him there.
The Zips, they've been in the tournament recently. I know. I think they lost their first round game last season. They are a solid team. That I believe that is the Maction Conference.
Yeah, that is
So
definitely
we love Maction. But speaking of that, Grand Canyon opposite bracket, that is the Waction Conference. So if you like Waction, you go Grand Canyon. If you like Maction, you take Akron. But for those reasons, I'm taking Creighton.
You know what? Oh man, this is gonna hurt my soul. But
Yeah, it's gonna
I am
hurt.
gonna take Creighton just because they're so good in the Big East.
They are so good in the Big East. I have Creighton. What is it? Creighton is a very slow paced team, like St. Mary's,
Yep.
like we say. Incredibly good at shooting threes. They've always been that way ever since they had
Dougie McBuckets.
Dougie Fresh. Yeah,
Yep.
Dougie Fresh was shooting buckets over there. So you got Dougie Fresh shooting threes. Offensive rating is like 18th in the nation. And defensively, they're pretty solid as well. They rank 68th and 78th against the three. And speaking of fresh, I need you to keep it fresh. My computer is running low on juice. So I'm going to go grab my battery and bring it back. So you could keep this live and rolling, Triggs?
Yeah, we'll run through Texas and Tennessee here, and we'll see how I feel at that point.
Okay, I got you. All right, give me like 1 minute. I'll be right back. Here we go.
So Texas, I mean, I really like Texas. They're just a solid squad coming in as a 7 seed. They have the play in, which I'm not really worried about Texas in this round. The problem with Texas, though, is they have to run into Tennessee, who's a solid 2 seed. I'm not. Some of your comments are hilarious. Go get your charger. And I think that's what he ran to do. Tennessee's number. Nope, there he is. He's fast.
And I'm back.
Tennessee's
There we
seventh
go.
in the Ken Palm ratings. So like to me, Tennessee's one of those teams where they're gonna have a anyone that plays them is gonna have a tough out. Tennessee's got a 20-point score.
Yep.
They just kind of do it
Yeah.
the Tennessee way, basically. I mean, even the lady Tennessee Vols play the
Right.
same way. So it's like get your best player the ball and just get out of the way.
Yeah, and I've heard too, like Rick Barnes, like this is probably like his best legit team. I know he's had a lot of early exits, even ironically going back to his days at Texas. But I think this Volunteers team like has a different look. If I'm right, they do have some NBA talent on that team, right? Right, Triggs?
Yeah, I think his name's Dalton.
Okay.
Oh, I'm really bad at names right now, but
Sure.
it's like Dalton Neck or
Okay.
something. The guy's putting up like 20 a game.
Yeah, I've
There's
seen
a
the
lot of guys
highlights.
putting up some 20s.
Yeah, I've seen the highlights and the handles. They're kind of Allen Iverson-ish. Like there's some guys that can legitimately ball on this team.
Yeah, and they got some really solid shot blockers too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Texas is definitely going to get beat at Tennessee. I agree there.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I got that. So then they run into Creighton, if we're correct on this.
I actually picked Oregon.
Oh, you picked Oregon.
I
Okay, he
did.
went back to the Ducks.
I did.
She wore the Duck shirt.
Maybe.
Although, spoiler alert, I'm gonna have to get a new Duck shirt because my Duck shirt, it's gone through basically the tunnel in what's that movie? Anyways, it's been through the ringer, and I need a new Duck shirt. So oh well.
So I think we got through all the regions. How about you hit me with your final four, and we'll try to wrap it up so your career gets some juice.
Yeah, so I'm going with my Volunteers actually winning against the Will Wades. So I think that is where Tennessee just has a different kind of style. They're in the Final Four.
Yeah.
I have them going up against Kentucky, and like I said earlier, Tennessee plays everything. They play all styles of play. They actually have a win against Kentucky as well. Tennessee is just a very, very well balanced team. And trying to see if I got some Volunteers stats here. And they are pretty much good at everything except for like shooting the three, but their pace of play is already like kind of in that top quadrant at 70th. They look really solid. They're really good at efficiency on offense and defense, and they're incredibly efficient at defending the three. So that's where I like them to stop Kentucky when they run into Kentucky. So that I like. I do have Kentucky up in the South. And then in this West region, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I do want to do a deeper dive, like you are saying, and really look at that between New Mexico, Arizona, and North Carolina. It's one of those three. 100%, no debate. It is one of those three. So I like that. And then honestly, in the East, I'm going to have to do some work, but I think it comes down to Iowa State and Connecticut.
So, I mean, it's kind of scary that we have almost the same Final Four. I have UConn,
Oh, wow.
Arizona, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I'll see how mine shapes up when I finish up later tonight. But that is pretty much my train of thought. I mean, the guys on Connecticut, like they're redwoods, like they are giants. They are absolute giants, and like you said, how dominant Connecticut is. It's going to take something really impressive to beat off a team that has only 3 losses like Connecticut. That is a scary team that you have there in the Big East. That is a tough conference to play in. They've lost guys from last season. Connecticut's great. They're a really good team. So I got to find something scarier than Northwestern, Alabama, Birmingham, Yale, Duquesne, Illinois, Drake. To me, the only team that really makes me think that can beat Connecticut is Iowa State.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to for me in the Elite Eight is UConn and Iowa State, and it's like, yeah, UConn has lost a couple games here and there, but like they ran through the Big East like it was easy almost.
Right, and that's scary, man. That is a tough conference.
Right, and when your best competition, they beat Creighton by 14 and only gave up 48 points.
Jeez.
Marquette at one point they beat by 16 and only gave up 57 points.
Like, what was that? That was without what was that without what's his name that's missing from Marquette?
Yeah, that was during the tournament. But then earlier in the season they beat them by nearly 30.
Jeez. Yikes. And that's probably with him.
Yeah, probably. It's one of those things where it's like, is it UConn against the field and I pick UConn? Or like it's tough. it is tough to see a team beating that team.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yeah. It's,
when you're beating top seeds by 20, 30 points multiple times.
yeah.
I mean, they beat Marquette 3 times.
Yeah, that's kind of why. Yeah, that's insane, and that's why. Like, if this championship game really ends up being Tennessee against Connecticut, I think Tennessee is going to have done fairly well against smaller player teams, but Connecticut is Redwoods, and I think that's a totally different animal. If that happens, I just don't think Tennessee can compete against Connecticut at that point.
All right, before we leave, we need this. We need you to say it.
Oh yeah, James Madison is over Bucky. I hate to tell it to you. It hurt me to pick it, but I mean I am hearing that James Madison has 2 guys that are just absolute ballers on James Madison, and they can play, man. And like I say, the style of play that James Madison has lost against has been against somewhat faster paced, offensive oriented teams, and that is just not Wisconsin. So I, for those reasons, have James Madison going on past Wisconsin, but losing to Duke for now.
And remember, James Madison shocked the world at the beginning of the season and beat Michigan State. So it's
Bingo.
not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Wisconsin also beat Michigan State. So I'm holding out hope. I am holding out hope that Wisconsin get past James Madison. I got them in the Sweet 16. That's where they run into Houston, but they're gonna have an easier draw because I even have Duke getting upset by Vermont, but like
right.
James Madison's one of those teams. I mean, when you win 31 games, there's something about you.
And like, I mean, I know one of my matchups I got to go back and double check because I think it did kind of something with the math actually signaled the opposite. I forgot which matchup it is exactly on my bracket. But the thing I do know from especially recent years since Buzz Williams was at Virginia Tech before he got to Texas A&M, the kryptonite of a Virginia, right? Let's make it simple. Virginia, they want to just play like hide and seek in terms of basketball. They want no scoring whatsoever. They want to get the ball. They want to kill the shot clock, and they want to launch a 3 and score 3 points and make it feel like you're down 30-0 when you're only down 3-0. That's Virginia's style of basketball. The way you can beat a zone defense like that is by getting down court stupid fast, play like a Star Wars kind of offense, and destroy that zone before it can even get a chance to form. So James Madison can do that. They can run the court fast. They are the 53rd fastest pace of play team in the nation. They hang a ton of points. They can defend points. They can defend threes. They are second best in the nation against threes. This is a recipe for disaster for Wisconsin.
Right.
This is like Davidson with like Steph Curry, man. Like I'm telling you, this is basically Davidson 2.0.
And on top of that, I mean, it's destined. James Madison's the Dukes. They should play against Duke.
Yeah, it should be the Dukes against Duke, and I think then that's why I'm sticking with Duke. That's no debate.
I actually picked the opposite of both of those games.
I know.
So I didn't want any Dukes in there.
You don't want any Dukes in there. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Just from I am definitely more of a college fan than especially NBA. And I have noticed, especially since like NIL, transfer portal stuff, James Madison is actually getting good at like every sport, men's, women's, lacrosse, football, basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball, everything. James Madison is crushing it. Like that is really, really cool. I don't know how that NCAA like tournament for every sport they do some trophy for that. I think it's in the summer, but I'm telling you, James Madison as a sports athletic school for us in Wisconsin, we kind of have one similar, even though I know everyone thinks Wisconsin. The other big school that we have for sports in Wisconsin is a school called Whitewater. To me, that is what James Madison reminds me of. They remind me of Whitewater, and they are dominant at every sport. And that's what James Madison is doing. And I think they're really going to show it in that first game against Bucky.
Nice. Hey, I know we're going to an hour and a half.
It's fun. It's so much fun with college hoops. Like, this is totally worth it. Totally has to do it. It is definitely our long-term vision at No Debate Sports is to do more about college basketball, men's and women's. So there's some really cool things in this, cool storylines, better storylines on the women's side, to be honest. Just a little bit into the Final Four, and I don't have my championship game totally finalized, but I'm pretty confident in who my national champion is. And I know, like you said, on the men's side, do you want to go Connecticut or the field? The big thing that you see on the women's side is, do people want to pick South Carolina or the field? Who would you go in that, Triggs?
Actually, I didn't have time to kind of look at all the women's stuff, but
yeah,
I mean, if you're going to put me on the spot, South Carolina beats everybody.
They do beat everybody. And this is even better than the Alyssa Boston team with her leaving and playing on the Indiana Fever now. This is, honestly, this is a better South Carolina team than that team. But I will tell you, I'm a little concerned with the region beneath the South Carolina region, the region that has Texas and Stanford. I feel like South Carolina probably makes it to the national championship. But I do think that team they play against, I think that team beats South Carolina. And that team that I have is Connecticut. Ironically, not the men's Connecticut, but I see the women's Connecticut winning. The fact that Paige Buchers is back, or Beckers, I think that Connecticut team was already pretty balanced. But now that Paige is back from – I mean, it sucks. She tore her ACL in the tournament like 2 years ago, and she had to miss all of last season into this season. This is her tournament. This means more to her than Caitlin Clark. It means more to her than Juju Watkins. This tournament means more to Paige than anyone else. And I think she's going to ball out. I think the team is going to ball out. I think, especially with this NIL transfer portal deal, I guarantee you that Dan Hurley has given information to Gino Auriemma to how do you navigate this. The fact that Dan Hurley knows about it from Nate Oates and his brother down in Arizona State. I think that information has been transferred to Geno Smith. And that women's team we already know is dominant in Connecticut. I think all these factors come into play. And honestly, even if Paige was back last season, I would have definitely wanted Connecticut to go the distance. But now that she's here now and they still have pretty much that entire team, I think Connecticut goes the distance.
Hey, that's a solid pick. I'm definitely gonna have to look into my my women's bracket and put everything up and kind of figure out what I'm gonna do there. I'm really big on the men's bracket today, but
totally.
There's some good storylines that come out. I'm a WNBA fan, probably more than most people would realize.
Totally.
A lot of these young ladies are destined for some WNBA next year.
They are, and even seeing what we're going to get out of future years out of Juju Watkins at Southern Cal, like I'm telling you, she is a baller. Like her and Paige Beckers are awesome. I know Caitlin Clark can shoot the lights out. But honestly, all-around players, I think both those are actually better than Caitlin Clark. And I do have UCLA coming up from that region above Connecticut. I do have South Carolina opposite side. And then in the other side, I know we have Texas, Stanford, local favorites here of Green Bay is actually a really good women's team. I'm probably going with Stanford. But I have seen in recent years, I know Texas, and I don't know where they are exactly, but Ohio State is actually a really good women's team as well. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. But I guess my Final Four is now South Carolina, UCLA, Connecticut, my favorite to win it all, and Stanford. So that's kind of where I'm playing with this.
Nice.
So,
and yeah,
awesome.
We appreciate everybody hanging out with us for an hour and a half.
Absolutely. Tons of fun.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah.
Hopefully we go undefeated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is
On
tough to
top
go
of
on these
that,
brackets, but I can tell you too from experience from like doing well in the past or thinking that a bracket is done, your brackets can sometimes become Lazarus. They can come back from the dead. Like it's cool. Like this is one of the cool things, unlike anything else that people do for fun with sports. The March Madness tournament is truly the most special tournament out there in sports and men's and women's side. But it is so cool when you actually see your bracket and you're like, oh, my bracket's done. And then a few days go by and a week goes by and you're like, oh, some of my teams are actually still alive and still in there. And they come back and do damage for you and your bracket is back. It's cool. It happens. So it can be tough, but don't lose the faith and just have fun, have a blast, and just enjoy the games. Like no matter what happens, all these games are awesome.
totally.
That's no debate.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I was gonna throw out there, oh man, that's true. That she is a monster. I don't know her
I
name
think
off
she's the
the top of my head
best.
right now, but
She
yeah,
she is better than Paige. She's better than Caitlin Clark. She is the best.
man, when she trucked old girl from LSU, I was like, ooh, here we
Angel
go.
Reese.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
No. It was there was like a little scrum at the end of
Oh.
that game, and she got kicked out of the first game of the SEC tournament. Yeah,
Oh, wait, are we talking? Oh, sorry, my bad. On South Carolina. That's right.
yeah,
South Carolina,
yeah.
LSU. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, so like the guys watching this, gals watching this, I know we got a lot of ex people watching.
Sure.
Definitely throw your final four picks um up there, and we'll check them out, see if you got
Yeah.
the same ones that we got.
Yeah. If you got any
And
spoilers or crazy insights on something, like give us a heads up. Like the more knowledge we have into these games, I mean, there's a million games, right? It's hard to really have eyes on all of them. Like I said, like I'd love to have more knowledge about Duquesne and Illinois, but I don't. I just have what I got. So like more knowledge, whatever you guys got to share, let us know. Give us your feedback. We love it all.
yeah, and we always interact with a lot of the stuff, so it's fun for us. We're growing a little bit on X. We were kind of into YouTube and Facebook for a while, and like now the X Twitter is blowing up. So yeah, hit us
Totally.
with your final fours in the comments, and
Yep.
we will gladly jump on board with you, and
Yeah.
hopefully you win that $1 million or whatever it is your brackets connected to.
That's no debate.
Oh,
Boom. So there we go. I think that's a great show we got. And again, next week we'll talk about everything. The March Madness tournament, NFL, NBA. This is a very transitional time of year where we see this fluid across all sports. And yeah, maybe the LSU ladies, Kim Mulkey and crew, maybe they don't go too far. I do think last year was special, and that's why I think UCLA is going to give them a little bit of a hiccup. But there's just more resistance on that side of the bracket, unlike last season for LSU. So I think LSU is going to have a little bit of a tough time. But again, you can find all this cool stuff on our platforms, and we are back next week. We are 7:00, and we are going to do our thing and stick to 2 shows a week, Monday, Tuesday, 7:00. You'll see us every week, but we had to go long this night. This was way too much fun to not go long. So there you go, man. For myself, Steve Metrics, your boy,
DJ TRIGGS.
and together we are No Debate Sports, and that's No Debate.